Tony, what's the story on this? You put this on your bikes?
Yeah.
That was on the cylinders?
It was somewhere I had picked up the idea that the car guys, Drake Myers, Offenhauser, when he finished the engines on it, he put a plaque on it. Okay? And so I said, I got to come up with something.
Escuderian did that too.
Escuderian?
Yeah.
Escuderian cams?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did that.
And so I said, I got to come up with something. And so I said, and it had to be some kind of animal. Okay, because the Ford had the Mustang. I said, what the heck could I come up with on it? And I thought about snakes.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what's the most wildest, vicious snake out there? And the cobra.
That's right.
So what's the 133? That's the horsepower?
Yeah, that's the horsepower. And in them days, we weren't taking it and putting it on dynos because I was against dynos because at the factories on it, we used to take Suzuki and Kawasaki, we'd take the bikes to the dyno and we'd have to overhaul them right after we put them on the dyno. And so I couldn't see overhauling something to find out what kind of horsepower it had. So I used the Escuderian slide ruler thing and it's cardboard, right? And I'd slide it back and forth and figure out what it was on it, and it was pretty doggone accurate. It would come within like about 2% of what the horsepower was. Today, on bikes that are the same weight, that are the same horsepower, on it, they know by how fast it runs and the weight that it takes that kind of horsepower. They got formulas in the computer spit it out like that, $25,000 computers. And I'm saying, gee whiz, you know, for doing this on a doggone slide ruler and then just guessing at it. The first one was a 120. That one we did on the slide ruler. But the slide ruler got really bad. You know, it was all like cardboard and it just deteriorated and you couldn't get an accurate reading on it and it got really frayed too. So then we just figure out, well, if that was 120, then we're going this fast now, that must be 130 and 133 and 138. And then they had one engine that was a fluke. The porting was done wrong on it by mistake, and they misread conversion of between millimeters and inches, and the guy had an inch rear caliper instead of a millimeter, and so he ported it wrong. That one produced 149. That engine never got reproduced, and that engine blew up. So there was never another 149. There was plaques that said 149, but the most powerful engine that still existed to today was 138.
You rode that one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When I come back, I'll show you the report charts that I used to give to Kawasaki to turn in at the end of the day. I kept several of them. The dyno charts on this, I think, and
the H1R?
yeah, and which
75. How much horsepower?
BS,
Oh.
about 54.
6 less horsepower than stock?
Stock was 45.
On an H1 was 60.
See, that horsepower is propaganda. That horsepower is crankshaft horsepower.
Instead of rear wheel horsepower?
Yeah, okay. And so what they do is that
Is it on?
they got a dyno, and they got a sprocket on the end of the crankshaft, and they got it to a pulley, okay, and that pulley is turning, and it runs the dyno, and the dyno reads whatever the horsepower it is. So they're not even going through the transmission.
Did everybody do that back then, or just Kawasaki?
I think everybody did.
Okay.
Everybody lied more than the others.
Well, but now cars up to 1972 were measured the same way, which was brake horsepower, which was at the flywheel. And after 72, they rated it at the rear wheel, which lost about 100 horsepower to the rear wheel.
And they're Okay, yeah, that might be true, but the most powerful horsepower readings in the early days was the English horsepower, which is what, BPM or BPM, British brake horsepower.
Correct.
They have the reading at the rear wheel,
Which is
Okay.
accurate.
which is accurate.
Okay.
And so, now, there was nothing wrong with that because it doesn't make any difference on it. The Kawasaki was still the fastest thing on two wheels.
Yeah, that's true too.
You know, because here's the story, okay? On 00001, it was a sandcast engine, okay? Let me think. I think the month was September. The service manager was, this is in Gardena, California, which was the first place that Kawasaki started, on a very tiny place, less than 6,000 square feet, maybe 4 to 6, let's put it that way, parts department and everything. And the racing department and service department was 1,500 square feet. And in the back room, they called me in from, I was working at Suzuki, and it says, Tony, come to work to Kawasaki. And I said, well, I can't quit Suzuki, they're treating me awful nice here. So I quit Suzuki, I went to work for BSA Western. BSA Western told me they were going to pay me much more than I was making at Suzuki. When I got my first paycheck, it wasn't what they told me they were going to pay me. And then they said, well, after 90 days, you get a raise. So 90 days came, on it, they gave me my raise, 5 cents. I said, I'm going to Daytona on it. Or, no, not Daytona, it was another race. And he said, well, you coming back after the race? I said, no, I'm not. So I went to work for Kawasaki, and I went there, they took me to the back room where they had all the parts, bikes, and road racers stored. And it was nighttime, and they wheeled out this H1. And that night we went to Nevada, and our headquarters was the back of the van and Caesar's Palace Hotel on it. And we proceeded to run the bike as hard as you could run, and the thing was to every day put a minimum of 100 miles or more, and we'd go up from Nevada to St. George, Utah, and then the next day, to change the monotony, we'd go from Las Vegas to Tonopah, Nevada, which is uphill. And then coming back down, it was downhill. And I remember one night, it started snowing, and it was colder than hell, and all the Japanese had to pick me up and put me on the motorcycle because I had so many clothes on that I couldn't throw my leg across it. And another night, this is like it was still summertime,
This is what year?
and 68. Okay, I'm coming down this big long slope, that 6 degrees downgrade, okay, and I'm running. It had a throttle stop on it, so you could leave the throttle in one position on it. I had my feet on the handlebars, and I'm sitting back like this, and I'm looking at the stars, and you could see a million stars in the sky, and this thing was so smooth on it. It had mirrors on it, and you could depict on it hundreds and hundreds of stars on each mirror on it, and there was no vibration. The Sandcast motor was flawlessly, with not having any vibrations to it, and it had more horsepower. It had louder mufflers on it because the baffles were drilled for louder. When they finally came out with a production model, they changed the baffles, and they changed the sprocket. The first H1s, the 001, had a 43 tooth rear sprocket to it. The production bikes had a 45, and they went from 30 millimeter carburetors to 28 millimeter carburetors, and the port timing and the rest on it they left alone. Now that pilot run bike ran 1241 at 109 to 110 miles an hour every single time that I took it to Irvindale to test it. And I took it to Irvindale and Carlsbad. And this is a closed session where nobody was there, but
Now, which bike was that?
that was 00001.
Okay.
The prototype bike.
So which is the one you set the record on?
That was a pilot run bike. On it.
And what do you mean by pilot run?
Pilot run is like pre-production bikes. They release about 20 bikes. We got 16 of them, and Japan kept 4 of them. That bike, I kept it to go drag racing with, and that's the bike that I set the record at 1241 at 111.38. But it had the stock gearing on it. Now I wanted to
Like it had a 45 tooth rear sprocket?
yeah, I'm sorry, not 41, I'm sorry, it was 47, 1247. So I put a 46 tooth rear sprocket on it, and I got it down the next meet to 1241 at 109.75. Then through the months following that year, I got it down to as low as like I think 1237, 1236, and always 109. It always keep on seeming to managing 109.75. Then in 1970, I switched over to a red bike because I like the color red, and it really was a silver bike to start with, or the gray, and I just changed the gas tank. That bike I got eventually down to 1229 and 110 and a half. And then the NHRA opened the rules where you could change the exhaust system if the exhaust systems were available. And I ran 117 at 1227 on it, which was still considered a stock production bike. And that was the very best as a stock bike.
So were the ones the record set, did they have 30 millimeter carburetors?
No, they had the 28s.
They had the 28s?
Yeah, none of the records were ever set on the stock class with that 30 on it. That engine became our modified bike, and that bike immediately, with the 30 millimeter carburetors on it, jumped up to like the first porting we did to the thing on it was running 125 miles an hour.
So what happened to those first bikes? Did they have them crushed after they? Or?
No, they didn't do it to them. Normally they would do that to all of the bikes, but they even gave me 0001, the Sandcast, and I gave it to my mechanic, Jack Murphy.
So does he still have it? Or
Jack died a long time ago, and I think he sold it because he used to port cylinders and sell racing bikes and stuff like that to everybody in the country.
So somebody's got that one somewhere.
Yeah,
Probably.
it's a good possibility. I'm pretty sure that the bike is long gone, but the cases, I say, would still be in Southern California.
So the one, like I was looking in your scrapbook, and they have the one bike that they have the duct tape on the tank and everything. That was so nobody knew it was a Kawasaki.
That was 00001.
Okay, that's the same one.
Yeah, that's the Sandcast engine. That's the one. In that picture that you see, that's in Nevada.
So did the engine cases have Kawasaki?
No.
So they were just smooth.
In fact, the engine cases, the ignition cover and the oil pump cover, them were like pot metal. On it, really heavy. On it, super heavy. And I think between the pot metal cases on the outside and the engine being Sandcast is probably what contributed why the engine was so smooth. Because the minute that I got the pilot run bike, well, I could start feeling the vibration. Now, part of the vibration came out of it if you tuned the bike right. Tuning the bike right means cutting the oil pump back to bare minimum, putting the jam nut on the opposite side of the case, and turning the adjustment screw all the way in, so you got maximum slack, but the throttle actually opens up 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch before the throttle cable ever moves the oil pump from the stop. On there, you got to do that. Take the air screws and run them all the way in, and back them out only 3/4 of a turn instead of a turn and a half, and make sure that you sand and file all the pickups on there and get that air gap down to, the gap was between 12 and 16 thousandths. Keep it at 12 thousandths. And they were all over the place on it to get all three of them the same, and it could be either 16 or it could be 12, but it would have more horsepower if it was at 12 thousandths gap. And just little tiny things like that, without going in and torquing down the cylinder heads properly on it. Anytime you assemble an H1 or an H2, you got to go back 3 or 4 times after you assemble the motor and constantly retorque the cylinder heads, crisscrossing it on there, and just come up at, if they're starting out, you start out at, I think it was somewhere like a 240 to 260 inch pounds. You start out at 50 inch pounds, then 75, then 80, then 100, and you just go up real small increments until you get them all snug, and then after, say, a tank of gas, go back and check them again. Another tank of gas and check them again. And after the 3rd time, it pretty much stabilized. You found none of them were loose. By the 4th time, it was good until you tore the engine down one more time. But just them minor adjustments made a drastic difference in how smooth the engine ran, and it wasn't an H1 to most people, still to today, say it was a peaky engine. You had to rev the RPMs up and slide the clutch to lead from a standing start with 2 people on it. That wasn't the case. You run that air screw in to 3/4 of a turn out, and it'll lead from just above an idle with 2 people on board. And cutting down the oil pump on it, because that hurts to hell. If you leave the oil pump set with the factory specs, you're going to wipe out the CDI box.
Well, no, why is that?
Because the CDI box has a brain, okay, in it saying, burn off all the oil, burn off all the oil, okay, and as long as that thing is over oiling, it's running wide open the whole time. And if you run a horse wide open the whole time, he's going to wind up dying on you.
I gotcha.
Because to burn that oil off, the millijoules in the CDI box go way up, and so it's running wide open on there. And by cutting down the oil, you relieve the pressure on the box, and then it lasts forever.
So why'd they paint the battery covers were silver and the oil cover were silver on the 500, like in that picture right there?
Mm-hmm.
So was there a reason for that? Were they going to come out with it like that, or did they just do that so nobody knows it counts?
No. This bike either is a pilot run bike or it is 0001. I got a good suspicion that this might be. Was the brake on the opposite side?
Yeah, the hub, right. That hub is not in the production location.
Okay, they were on the right on the right side,
Correct.
and this is on the left side.
Correct.
This is the pilot run bike.
Yeah, see
not
that-
the pilot. I'm sorry. This is 0001.
That front end or the brake position's like an A7.
You know
And it
why?
should be twisted around.
Because that's an A7 front end.
No, that hub is not an A7 hub. That
It
hub,
ain't?
No.
Oh,
That's
I'm talking about the forks. The forks.
no, because the axle won't work.
It won't.
No, because the
Okay.
the A7 an H1 axle is larger than an A7 axle, where it screws into the bottom part of the tube.
This is a ill handling tire.
The K77.
Yeah, that's a really bad tire on there.
Yeah.
So was that just, they had it just painted silver, just to cut?
Yeah, just because they wanted. See, there's no marking on this bike on this cover at all.
Uh-huh.
You can't see. Wasn't there Kawasaki on this cover?
How about the battery? Yeah, there's Kawasaki there, but how about the battery cover? It's
Yeah,
just,
this here being silver was. That was the.
just something they did for the prototype?
Yeah, you know, we didn't want no markings. And then, this tank here, on it was from they had a tank flown in, okay, and we put that on because they were going to take pictures, because the other tank, you know, was nothing like that. In fact, there was no markings.
See, that's an A7 axle and that's
Oh.
an H1 axle.
Oh, okay.
So it won't work. The center of the bearings are different too.
Uh-huh.
So what did people say when they came up and asked, and they saw this bike was a 3-cylinder? Did that?
Okay, the one place that this incident took happening, and I'm going to talk about, It happened in the Mojave Desert, okay, near Edwards Air Force Base. And I think it was in the city of Mojave, in fact. We pulled into the gas station, and a guy came up to gas us up, and he says, "What is that?" And there was a Yamaha parked there. And he says, "It's nothing but a Yamaha. I just added a cylinder to it." He said, "Oh, wow, that's neat, man." He says, "How much will you charge me to do that?" And I says, "Well," he says, "I don't know. This took a long time to do it, you know."
$998 next year.
But it's ironic that that's where I'm going, you know, but that was the place that happened at.
$998 plus tax next year.
Yeah,
I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
In fact, it was less than 6 months from that time that the bike was out on the road. And they really got with it. Every other bike would take sometimes like a year, 2 years to get out, and they were in a hurry. They wanted to get the sales away from Honda. They knew that Honda was unstoppable, and they were the last, at the time, they were the last major manufacturer to come into the country. And they knew they had started way too late.
Now the 750 Honda, the KO, came out before the 69 H1. Didn't it come out in September of '68?
I think so.
I'm guessing now.
Yeah,
I don't know for
think,
sure.
I think so, because the idea was to compete against the Honda 750 and the Triumphs. That was one thing. They knew that the Americans loved Triumphs.
But didn't Kawasaki not expect the Honda? Wasn't the Honda unexpected to them?
No, because see, a lot of this stuff is not made at the factories. It's made by vendors, and the vendors, they pay them money, and they'll tell them anything they want.
Yeah, okay. So
Okay,
like spying, they get the
Yeah,
information
and
they want.
to give you an idea how bad that is that at Suzuki, Honda used to come at the Santa Ana Freeway with their cameras and go, we'd come in from testing in the afternoons about 4:30 to 5 o'clock and go click, 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 click on all the bikes that we were producing. So that's why when I was producing, let me think, the X5 on it, we moved all the testing to the president's garage, and I'd work on the bike at his house at night, and I'd pick it up in the morning on it. And I can also see why now that the Japanese get so far ahead in big executive corporations on it over the Americans on it. Because when they got through working, they didn't go home. They went to the president's house and they cooked dinner for him, and they got in the hot tub with them, and they massaged them on it. And I know that them guys now on it, they're the presidents of the company. And so the Americans were more qualified, okay? They have a Japanese and an American. And the American is doing an excellent job, and the Japanese is not doing bad, but he ain't as good or as sharp as the American because he's in a foreign country and he doesn't know the way the Americans think. But yet, when it came to advance on it, the Japanese guy always advanced on it, be above and beyond what the American did. On
Still
it.
today.
And that's why the Americans, all the executives on it, had an arbitration against Suzuki in 1968. And then at Kawasaki, they were sharper. They never gave the Americans the power that the other Japanese companies gave the Americans. They always, stayed 2 or 3 levels above them on it. And when they got too big, they'd move them out. They just flat buy out their contract for whatever length of period. If it was 4 years, 6 years, they'd pay them off and send them down the road.
So how'd they come about with the second year, 1970, early 70, they came out with a peacock gray color on the tanks?
Oh.
How was the story on that?
Okay, the story on that, they all got together and they had a meeting and they were going to decide what color they wanted. Alan Masick was the president of the company, so he had the most amount of votes. And it was Alan Masick, Don Graves, and Don Weagles. And they chose the color that Alan Masters' wife thought would be the nicest color, which was a Rolls-Royce gray. And he said, okay, we'll paint the color Rolls-Royce gray. You know, it's a classy color and it's a classy bike. Well, it turned out that all three of them were colorblind. They never saw the color of the bike. And when the bike was released on it, all the dealers complained. Everybody at Kawasaki complained. So in mid-year, they came out with a nice bright red color.
You know what color that red is? How they came up with that color?
No, at that point on it, it was people that were below them and they got together and they just went through a color chart, which was presented to them through a famous painter at that time on it was Molly, who did all the trick funny cars at the time, and he did all the trick paint jobs for Kawasaki. He painted all the road racers, and he was famous in the Hollywood scene.
So he came up with the red tank and white stripe?
Yeah, I think he probably had the biggest input to what color. He just painted probably like 20 or 30 tanks and let them choose, and they came up with that.
Well, that's probably one of the best looking 500s, that color scheme.
Yeah, I thought so. In fact, my 70 model bike was, it was given to me with the Rolls-Royce gray tank on it, and the minute they came out with the red one, I switched.
Let me ask something real quick, Tony, about the ignition cover on their 69 and early 70. They retrofitted it from the factory with the exterior cover that ran the high tension, the spark plug wires on the outside rather than underneath the carburetor and behind the motor.
Okay, very good question. I kept on complaining that the ignition system was too powerful and they didn't have good enough wires. Now the wires were bought, they had first Japanese wires, and it was like a Christmas tree at nighttime in the desert in Nevada and Arizona and New Mexico. The bike would be sitting there idling and you could see it going psst, 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 underneath the tank. Okay? And so what I had to do was I had to get clear gas line from a parts house and cut it the full length from the coil and from the spark plug, clear down to the distributor cap on there so it wouldn't arc. And once I did that, it stopped all the missing that it had. And I cut the oil. In fact, I didn't cut the oil pump. I took the oil pump cable completely off. Okay? And that's when I came up with the slogan that the Kawasaki was not really in the motorcycle business, they were in the oil business, that they were selling oil, and that's why they had bikes that were just smoking in the United States so they could sell a lot of oil. But the reason for the change in the cover was that in '69, I sent in a report to Japan that we had to do something about the ignition, and my recommendation was to come up with another cover. Instead of running underneath the cases, let it come up over the top and put a rubber grommet and keep the wires separated. Because when the wires were touching each other, and in the desert what I did is I went out off the road and I found twigs and I separated each wire so they wouldn't touch anywhere as much as possible that I could separate them and still reach on there. Where when they finally came up with the new one on it, they put a rubber grommet and they separated them all, and that was much better, and that eliminated the problem on it. And they switched, with one other fact, they got rid of the Japanese wire and they went to American Belden wire, which is still considered one of the best high tension racing wires in the industry. Very, very expensive for that day. It cost like 6 times more than the Japanese wire did. And there was a lot of guff at the factory, going to that. They really fought that big time.
But they had to do it.
They had to do it because the bike, they thought the thing was going to catch on fire.
Now, when you made this recommendation, was that after '69 production had begun or before?
Before.
Okay, so they didn't implement that until
they're slow.
the '69 run. you could take your bike to Kawasaki and they would do it for free.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think there was something to that effect.
Yeah.
The reason they did that, it wasn't because they were wanted the bike to stop missing. They were scared that what I had wrote in my report, that if that fuel petcock started to leak on it, that thing was going to ignite and it was going to be a Roman candle,
Oh, good point.
you know.
I never thought
That
of
might be the end of 500s real quick. if
Yeah,
that
well,
happens.
there's enough 500s died on the road without that helping. The K77 rear tire, the first tire on the 69, and I believe halfway through 70 they changed to the K87 Dunlop rear tire. Anything on that? As
Yeah,
far as why?
Because at real high speeds on a rough surface road like gravel with grooves in it, it would start into an oscillation on it and the bike would start to wobble. And then the rear tire, it just would break loose at will. You know, I mean, if you try to drag race the thing, leaving from a standing start on it, it would spin the tire violently.
Really?
And then you go around a corner, it would slide, you know, these 10 to 12 inches, 18 inches, and sometimes even more, just slide right out from underneath you.
But wasn't that tire on the bike that you set the record on at 1296?
Oh, good possibility, yeah. Because to me, you know, I knew that. I thought that was part of going fast. To me, the faster you went, the worse the bike was supposed to handle. That's because they did.
Right.
You know, and so I didn't know that there was such a thing as a good handling bike until they came out with the A7.
Yeah, I was noticing on some of the pilot run pre-production bikes that they had steering dampeners on them, like the A7 and the W.
That also the 500, them steering dampers were on there to keep the bike from going into a tank slapper.
But the production models didn't come with the damper, it was offered as an option.
Yeah, because they couldn't keep they wanted to keep the price down, so the customer would buy it.
That makes good sense.
Now, it did have the knob on the
The
top.
friction dampener.
Yeah, it had the friction damper. And when you drag race the bike, when it got really fast, like 117 to 125, you locked down the dampener as tight as you possibly could, and you put the dampening knob on the bottom on number 5. On it, especially on the 750s. On the 750s, I tightened them so tight that a lot of times I broke the damn thing tightening it.
When was the first time you saw a 750? Or did you know they were making a 750 when they had the 500?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I would say about mid-year of 71. I know that because I had set the record on it in October of 71, the 750, 72 model. And the record really wasn't good. The reason it wasn't good was because it had so much horsepower and it had almost similar springs as the H1. Because they said, oh, well, it's only a 750, so the springs were only just a little bit longer. They were still the same diameter, and they were way too weak. Because in fact, if you put 500 racing springs, I went from 1250, I went only 1250 at 107 miles an hour with the 750. I'm saying, gee whiz, this bike is slower than a 500. It must be because it's heavier. You know, something's wrong here. And I wasn't satisfied. So then I put H1 racing springs, which I already had made, and I went 1223 at 113 miles an hour. I said, oh, that's more like it. You know, this is acceptable. Well, I took the springs from the stock pre-production bike, and I took them down to Azusa Engineering, and I had them make some 750 springs, and made a larger diameter on the OD of the wire, but the same length as the 750s instead of the 500. And then I went up to Fremont, and that's when I found out the true power of the bike. Because now the bike had run in 71 at Fremont at 113 and 1227. In March of 72, I went back up for the, I think they call it the Northern Nationals. I ran 1185 and 1195 and the backup was the 1185. But I only claimed the 1195 so that I could set the record later at a later date, because every time you set a record, you get points. And the mile an hour was 115. Now, Dennis Dean had a brand new 750, and he had matched all the cylinders, so they were all the same height. He had drilled the baffles, and I ran his bike, and I ran 116. So we were bouncing back and forth the mile an hour record. And so instead of fighting it out all day long with him, I made a gentleman's agreement that I would let him have the mile an hour record, and I would keep the ET record on it. So he got the mile an hour record at 115, and I got the record at 1195. And later on, I got the bike down to 1171.
No, that was a stock bike?
That was a box stock.
How come, when in the brochures, I seem to recall they said like it did a quarter mile in 12 seconds, and they always
Yeah,
had
12 O's, because that's all the magazine writers could get the bike to. Because the bike was impossible to keep down when you left the line. In fact, the first time I ran the bike at Lions, even though they only ran 1250s, I left like I normally leave, and Bob Braverman was standing on the sideline taking pictures on it, and I came out and I revved it up the same RPMs I revved the 500, but on that one you're really supposed to leave about 1,000 or 1,500 RPMs less, because it's a bigger bore on it. And I dropped the clutch, and that thing just stood straight up like this and bent the tail light, the license plate, and broke the lenses on the license, on the back, the tail light of it. And I said, whoa! And I didn't do that no more. The bike was unbelievable torquey. People didn't realize that. That thing had 54 pounds of torque. That was more than any other bike in the market at the time. Anything. I went on with the 500 to run a best of on a drag chassis of 1002 at 132 miles an hour, and on the 750 I run 851 at 161 miles an hour, but I didn't set the record at that. And at that time I wasn't campaigning the H2s anymore, I was campaigning the Z1. And today they still have H2s on it that produce 160 horsepower. Which I don't think there's nothing that's a 750 that's a two-stroke that comes anywhere near that.
So was there ever talk about building a bigger CC 3-cylinder?
Yeah, 900.
They were going to go for a 900?
Yeah.
Well, how come that never okayed?
Because the EPA on it in the smog.
So did they ever have designs for one drawn up, or was it all, did any
I think-
prototypes ever get made?
No, I don't think it prototype, but it was on the drawing board in Japan. That was for sure. And the 500 can be punched out to 680 cc's. And them bikes run in the mid 9s at 140 plus. And all the 750s, the majority of them, or I'd say that I know of, were running at 810 cc's to 820 at the max.
Did you ever have problems with center cylinders? I never had any problems. I
No,
rode the heck out of mine, but
you see, we ran during the development stages what they call pyrometers on all 3 cylinders, and they were on the handlebars, the gauges, and the center cylinder ran 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the outside cylinders. The reason for that is that the way that the fender's designed, it directs the air to the center cylinder, and the center cylinder can disperse the heat to the 2 outside cylinders, where the outside ones can only disperse heat in one direction, is inward. So it can't cool the outside cylinders can't cool as good as the center cylinder can.
Yeah, because I always heard the center cylinder overheated, and I never had that problem.
No, that was not the case on it. That's what everybody thought, you know, that the center, the truth is on thousands and thousands of miles with a parameter, because we wanted to know that did we have to set the jetting different and run a different spark plug on the center cylinder. And that wasn't the case. We could run all 3 cylinders, the same jetting and the same spark plug.
You missed it, Dan. Said they had plans drawn up for a 900 3-cylinder, but
I had read that. I'm sorry that this high production film had to put the kids to bed. But I had read that once before, that they wanted to do that, but they had to build the 900, or they made the 900 was originally supposed to be a 750 4-cylinder 4-cycle double overhead cam, but they bumped it to 900 so they can have something better.
That's true. That was the last phase of the discussions, okay? Because they have meetings, and the meetings take months.
Right.
All right, because everybody's got to go back to their department and take care of whatever they're doing. But the truth is that the Z1 started out life as a 1300cc engine. And
Really?
the cases were so big on it was overhead cam, and the cam towers would push against your knees, and you was riding like this. And so we said, that's not acceptable.
Right.
They're not going to go for that, you know. He said, yeah, but it's fast. It would run 9 seconds. It would run 9 seconds. Then won't you guys be happy? You know, you have a 9-second bike, man. You have a 9-second bike. And I'm saying, no, you know, it's got to be prettier than this on it, and it's got to be comfortable. You know, they're not going to go for something that's so gaudy looking like this is. And so they took the same engine and whittled it down to eventually where it wound up as a 900, where they got it small enough and they looked good enough.
Right. That design was good from the beginning, though. Once it went into production, there was very few problems with that motor,
Yeah,
wasn't there?
because that thing was something that they were running for years and years and years before.
Mm-hmm.
Kawasaki is the world's largest engine production company. More than General Motors. They produce more engines than anybody else in the world. At the time, anyway. I mean, I don't know about now.
Right.
But at the time when they were producing more engines. Because they were producing a lot of farm tiller engines for all of the Far East. We're talking about, you know, there's a lot of farms in the Far East. And then they got into the lawnmowers and then the jet skis.
They did tractors also.
Yeah, tractors.
Right.
Yeah. And they had the engines for all of the trucks that were in Japan and throughout the Far East and Malaysia. And,
Right.
they had like big, mean dump trucks.
I think at one of the early motorcycle shows when they came out with the 69, they had a completely gold-plated 500. Did you ever see that one?
No, I heard about it. The only exotic 500 that I saw was one that they gave Don Graves, and it got stolen from a bike show, you know, like the Anaheim Convention Center. The Japanese were so pleased how good sales were going that I think in 1970 they sent him a specially painted bike, and his bike, if you looked at it from a distance, it looked like it was solid one color. And you got close on it, there was a mural in the top of the gas tank. And you looked really close, it was a naked girl in the mural on it. And it was gorgeous. I mean, it was, you know, like somebody painted a portrait on it, like that you sell in a studio on it. And the thing was so gorgeous that he took the bike and they put it in the show, I think like around Chicago or something like that, or Cincinnati. I think it might have been Cincinnati. And at the end of the show, when everybody's loading their motorcycles up and loading them in their trucks, somebody loaded that bike up and took it home, and they never seen it again. So somebody on their closet or in their living room has got one beautiful gas tank. To the project for the H1, okay, was N100.
I think I remember reading that.
on there. And
Now, what's the significance of N100?
so nobody knew what they were talking about when we were talking on the phone in case the phones were tapped.
Oh, man.
And
So where did the term Blue Streak come from?
That was something that Alan Masick thought of through an advertising agency out of New York City.
So what was the Blue Streak? Was that the smoke coming out, or the tank? The
No,
stripe
no,
of the
just
tank?
the blue streak that they put on the tank. And that they knew that it was going to be fast. So I think that was one of the reasons that the Americans actually coordinated the colors of what the bike was going to be.
Also, would that go along with the theme of the green streak from the previous years? As far as the motocrossers, because the G31M was called a green
No,
streak.
yeah, but that's the G31M was after the H1.
Oh, good point. That's right.
That was after, so that probably it carried on blue streak to green streak. And again, the advertising agency out of New York, which they were probably the best in the world. At the end of the show, when everybody's loading their motorcycles up and loading them in their trucks, somebody loaded that bike up and took it home, and they never seen it again. So somebody on their closet or in their living room has got one beautiful gas tank. Oh, also, I'm trying to think on it. There was the nickname to the project for the H1, okay, was N100
I think I remember reading that.
on there. And
Now, what's the significance of N100?
so nobody knew what they were talking about when we were talking on the phone in case the phones were tapped.
Oh, man.
And
So where did the term Blue Streak come from?
That was something that Alan Masick thought of through an advertising agency out of New York City.
So what was the Blue Streak? Was that the smoke coming out, or the tank? The
No,
stripe
no,
of the
just
tank?
the blue streak that they put on the tank. And that they knew that it was going to be fast. So I think that was one of the reasons that the Americans actually coordinated the colors of what the bike was going to be.
Also, would that go along with the theme of the green streak from the previous years? As far as the motocrossers, because the G31M was called a green
No,
streak.
yeah, but that's the G31M was after the H1.
Oh, good point. That's right.
That was after, so that probably it carried on blue streak to green streak. And again, the advertising agency out of New York, which they were probably the best in the world at the time, they wanted a color that would stand out, because at Daytona you couldn't tell where your bike was at. I mean, everybody's bike looked the same, and so they're running down the back chute. You don't know if you're in the leader or not. Well, with painting the bike green, boy, they stood out on it. And when the concussion, even though that they didn't win, or I was there that year, we didn't win, all right, except one race, and that was Walt Fulton on it. Which was a novice race, and everybody knew that we were there. We was all dressed in green on it. The van was in green. The bikes were white and lime green, and it just spread a buzzword across the United States immediately on it. And they were so successful that they're still running it today. And yet a lot of riders object to running a lime green bike and wearing Kawasaki green leathers. That's why they've mixed the colors so much through the years. They've integrated greens and blues and reds and together with the green.
Did Kawasaki realize that the bike was going to be as a big a seller as it was?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so, because I feel that they would have geared up for a lot more bikes, because they had the capability of producing more bikes than 6,000 bikes. There was a demand the first year for the bikes that, you just couldn't get them. Dealers were out of them, and so I didn't even think that it was going to be that successful. And I stuck my neck out in '69. I told them, look, I says, I'm sorry, it wasn't '69, it was '70. And I stuck my neck out and I says, the rest of this year, I'll go out and I'll set 14 records for you. He said, that's impossible, Tony. You can't set. There ain't enough months left in the year. I said, yes, there is. I says, I'll set 14 records for you. Well, I went out and they did put me on the road, and I left the racing department and the R&D department and went strictly on the road drag racing for them. I set 44 records. I said, wow. So there was no question about getting a contract for the following year. And I went on to, I raced 70, 71, 72, and by the time of 72, in the meantime, besides the racing, I was holding seminars at the dealerships, telling them how to set up new bikes and how to set up bikes for racing. Well, by this time, I had put out bulletins on how to hop up the bikes, so the dealers were starting to hop them up. But I kept on coming into town year after year and blowing them away. Now they're starting to resent me coming into town and blowing them away. So I was getting too much bad publicity from the dealers because I was beating them. So it kind of hurt. We was doing good with the customers, but the dealers are the ones that sell the bikes to the customers. So Kawasaki says, man, Tony, we're into not next year's budget, but a year and a half from now. We've used up all our racing budget. He says, would you mind not going on the road next year, meaning 1973? He says, you can have any job you want at Kawasaki in any department. And I says, okay. I says, what I really want to do is, I said, I want to open up my own business in Northern California. And so they gave me a nice letter of recommendation to go into any department if I wanted to, if I didn't open up my business in California. And thanked me, and I wound up coming to Fremont, and I stayed there.
So that's when you opened up your shop in
Yeah,
Fremont, it's 1973?
Right. 1973.
Before we get to from 73 on, can you give us a little on the H1R that you picked up and drag raced and ran a Bonneville?
Oh, yeah. Okay, in 1970, they introduced the H1R. And so to get that thing off the ground, the Daytona was in March, and they already had this thing in January. And so I started racing it locally in Southern California, and the buzzword got around, man, Kawasaki has got one mean bike. All right, so I went to a national at Irwindale in February. Then I set a record in the mid-11s at 117 miles an hour. So I wasn't satisfied with that because my modified bike was running better than that. It was running already 125 miles an hour. And this thing was a full-fledged factory racing bike. I figured it should do better than that. So we changed the chambers on the bike, took the big gas tank because it was impossible to leave the starting line with that big gas tank. You're sitting right over the rear wheel with the road racing set up on it. And I put a little Coyote gas tank on it and modified the chambers and run my own chambers instead of the road racing chambers. Took it to Gainesville, Florida. Gainesville had just opened. The track was brand new. And it was an NHRA National. And I had the fairing on the bike. And everybody came around looking at the bike and they said, what this stupid idiot is doing running a road racer at a drag strip. Because people didn't run road race fairings at the drag strip. And the bike ran 125 miles an hour and it had picked up from 117 to 125 by just a few modifications on the chambers and rejetting the carburetors and taking the large gas tank off of it. And the record, I think, was like 1120s in that neighborhood. The bike went on to run in the high 10s at over 130 miles an hour in road race trim, which was like 10 to 15 miles an hour faster than anything else in that class. It just dominated the class
What did people say after that, after you ran?
on there. They all wanted to know when they could get one, and I told them that the bike would be available after Daytona, and in August of '70, and I was making all the circuit for HRA and all the drag bike meets that they had on it. I went to Bonneville and entered the bike at Bonneville. Now, this was my first attempt at Bonneville. I had never gone there before. I was going to go for Suzuki, but there was always developing a bike, and I couldn't make it. And you go to Bonneville, and it's a week long. Well, at Bonneville, it separates the men from the boys. People go to Bonneville, and they set a record after 3 or 4 years, because there's all kind of things that'll pull you down, even though you're the best in the world, best mechanics, best bikes, fastest bikes. The salt deteriorates all the electrical components. If the thing is battery ignition, you got to have a brand new battery every single day, or you have to make sure that that battery can take a fully charge when you get back at night to the motel in town, and charge it up on it and make sure that it's in perfect condition the next morning on it, because it'll go dead on you in a heartbeat on it. Your switches, you got to take a half a dozen electrical switches with you, because the salt, just being around the moisture coming out of the ground is all pure salt. And that's where Kaiser Steel mines the ground that pulls salt out of the ground there. I set one on the fastest record was on the H1R, which was 147 miles an hour. The fastest H1 at Daytona that year, which is sea level, was only 149 miles an hour. And they were claiming that the bike would go 150. Well, 149 ain't too bad, but to run at over 4,000 feet, I think somewhere 43 or 4,800 feet, which is Bonneville, and to run 147 was just unheard of. The record stood for years and years and years. The only thing that ever broke it was my own bike that went back up there with different porting, different chambers. It ran 158, but that was like about, I think, almost 8 years later.
So the first record was set on bike number 1,
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
which is that bike right
Right there, yeah, on there. And it handled like it was on a shoestring.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there was no such thing as you going fast so the bike is going to wobble. That bike went straight and smooth.
So what's the story on the, do you remember that bike right up there with the blue tank?
Yeah, that was going to be my junior pro stocker on it, and I never got to race it on it. I wound up selling the business, and the bike went along with all the rest of the bikes on there. That bike had a special frame on it that Cosman built, and Bob Burdick did a really trick paint job on it. In fact, my best effort in putting together a race bike went into that bike there. That bike, it only always take me like a couple of months, 3 months to put a bike together. That bike took over 6 months to put together. In them days on it, it was hard to have patience. You want to go do it tomorrow.
Well, things haven't changed.
Yeah, no kidding. The H2, the 72 H2 that you set the records on, the bike that I have, bike 1220, which was obviously your second bike. Your first bike was serial number what? Do you remember?
I think that was my first bike, number 12, that 2012.
1220?
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
No, you had one before. You had I think it was in the 50s because it had the pipe that had the crush on it where the
no,
was.
yeah, I just tested that bike. They didn't give me that bike to go
Oh, that
race.
wasn't your bike.
No, that wasn't my bike. My first bike was your bike. that what they gave me. They here, take this bike, go in and race this bike.
Oh,
Okay, and your bike would be, I would have to say, for the 750s, okay?
uh-huh.
On it was, I set more records on that bike, and I went to more different races on that bike in more states than any other bike
Okay.
that I've ever done. And I'm positive of that. On it, I was bouncing around from 1 week I'd be in Fremont, California. The next week I'd be in Akron, New Jersey. The next week I'd be in Gulfport, Mississippi. The next week in Denver, Colorado. Then the next week in it would be in Maryland, Cecil County, Maryland. Then in, I'd go back to to Fort Worth on a raceway, which is next to Dallas, Texas, on it, Green Valley Raceway on it. Then I'd back to Atlanta on a raceway on it, and I was putting from anywhere every year, and that particular year on it, I had the 750. I think I put like 80,000 miles during the racing season.
Wow.
On it. Not on the bike, but on,
No, I
on my,
realize, yeah.
on my,
I realize that.
on my van.
That'd be 320,000 on the bike, a quarter mile at a time.
Yeah. and that bike, it was one of the bikes that Dennis Dean always wanted me to put my latest carburetors, my latest engine modifications into that bike. And I said, no, I ain't done super tuning this bike. And so I just tweaked that bike. Month after month, year after year, year after year, I left it alone. And it just kept on going faster and faster and faster. And what I told myself was, when the bike stops going faster at the next race, then I'll start making modifications with it. The bike never stopped going faster. I wound up selling the business and selling all the bikes. So that bike's got a good history. That bike's got good omens on it. It was a champion from the beginning on there. And and the other thing, the bike never broke. Nothing other than the clutch. And that's because I used to slide the hell out of the clutch and abuse it tremendously, and I wore out tires.
Right.
But not even the chain or the sprockets. You know, I ran the same chain, same sprockets, same rings. It always had great compression on it. It was just one of them.
Now, the sprocket and chain you used, was it your low-loss sprocket and chain, or was it the production?
I would say it was probably my own production.
Your low-loss?
Yeah, low loss
Okay.
on there. Because that it's reciprocating weight, and you reduce the reciprocating weight a whole bunch.
Okay.
Okay, and that's very, very important on it.
Right.
On it.
Did you ever have a Tracy body on that bike?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Was it the white one with the red and blue stripe, or was it a different one?
I had two bodies.
Oh.
Okay, I had the white one, okay, with a Cobra on it. Okay, and that body started to leak. And so I took it back to Tracy, and he was in Santa Cruz at the time, and the guys that used to do the painting for him on it, they could never do the same paint job twice, and so he tried, and he kept on failing on it. So he says, I can't do it, Tony, I'm too busy, you know, and the guy was too stoned what it amounted to. I mean, he couldn't get him to stop smoking. Between the dope from the resins of the fiberglass and smoking dope, okay, there was no way that he could paint the damn thing on it. So he tried half a dozen times, and every time I'd call up, is my body ready? He didn't. So finally he just made me the second body there, the one you see on the catalog, the solid white with the stripes on it.
Okay.
In there. But I had a green body on it, which was that belonged to Dennis Dean, and I had a blue one on there, and I didn't like none of them. I liked the white one the best.
Right.
On there. The only thing is that with the body, it's lighter, like about 13 pounds over the stock stuff. But there's one problem. The bike, you cannot, because of the receding position, you cannot ride the bike as fast as the stock components. So every time that I really got serious and I wanted to set the record really good, I'd always put back the stock tank and seat on it.
Okay.
So, the,
Did you set the records with the Goodyear tires on it?
oh yeah, yeah. I set the records when they finally came out, which was, it was late. By that time, I think it was like 73.
Okay, so when you were first setting the record, was it on the stock tires, or did you?
Yeah,
run any-
stock tires.
So the Dunlop tires, you said,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah. But even with the ones that weren't no good, okay, because I did use the, what do you call it, the K87?
Yeah, the rear tires,
Okay,
K87.
the K87, on it, I would slide the clutch, so if it spun, it wasn't no matter, because I had control of it
Right.
on there.
You know, getting back to tires, I forgot to ask you earlier, you said that the K77 front tire, which came on all the H1s through 72, and the 72 H2 still used the K77, but in 73 they went to the F6, the ribbed.
That was a fabulous tire. That was a fabulous tire. Everybody that was racing motorcycles that knew me, okay, if they were running Triumphs, Hondas, anything, were using the F6 tire. That was by far the best handling tire that ever hit the market. And it stayed for a long, long time. Not until they came out with these super tires in the 80s,
Right.
in the mid 80s, like the Michelins and the Metzners and stuff like that,
Uh-huh.
was there a tire. Now Continental had a great rear tire. The compound was real soft and we ran really good with the Continental. And there was one Dunlap, I'm not sure what number it was, but it was a great tire to put on a good show. With one of the 120 horsepower motors, you could smoke the tire to half track in a quarter mile. Just like a funny car.
Jeez.
I mean, the crowd would just go bananas, you know. I mean, we did that at Irwindale, we did that at Orange County, and we got a standing ovation each time that we did it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just make a burnout and just stand on the throttle and it smoked. And you stopped at the end of the 8th mile, the smoke would just envelop you, you know. But boy, I mean, the times were lousy. They were like about 13 seconds or something like that. It was only for show.
That's great. You know, that's you need somebody that's knowledgeable on bikes and somebody willing to take the time to lay
And
it
like,
all out.
okay,
and
let's put it this way. Only you guys would know if I was bullshitting or telling you the truth that the bike had a silver stripe on the seat band. Okay? And you guys knew that it was a gold stripe.
Oh, you're talking about the 69 H1.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was a gold stripe. You know, all I knew that the son of a bitch hurt the hell out of the inside of my legs. And I told him, get this thing off of here, get this thing off of here. Make it like the A7.
Hey, there's been a lot of debate over that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of people still think it was silver.
There are people remanufacturing the seat covers today that are doing it in silver.
And everybody thinks that was original.
And Lewis is calling, I'm trying to argue with him. I tell him, let him do it in silver. You know, let everybody have a wrong one. We'll have, you know, we'll be the guys that are right.
Let me think. Okay, there was two different oil pumps.
In 69?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah, two different oil pumps, which cut the oil consumption way back. All right, because they found out while I was testing the bike coming. I remember when this incident. It was coming from Las Vegas back down to San Bernardino. Okay, I said, I'm going to run the bike with the cable disconnected. He says, Tony, that's 100-to-1 ratio with the throttle all the way off. When you got the throttle wide open, it's 20-to-1. I said, I don't care. 20-to-1 is too damn much oil. Look at it. I'm going to get a ticket. Okay, this is the United States of America. We can't be running down the road. All three packs are going like this. Through Las Vegas, man, that was embarrassing, you know. So I got down to the, you know where the Tropicana is at?
Mm-hmm.
In Las Vegas. I got to the Tropicana. I pulled in the parking lot. I took the cover off, and I grabbed a little screwdriver and popped the old cable and pulled it off. And it says, no, Tony said. I said, don't worry. I said, we got plenty spare pistons, you know, if it seizes up. And because they just sent us a carton of stuff. And they shook in their head, but I was in charge, okay? And they were the engineers from Japan, but I was in charge. And so, here I go, man. I'm running all the way down from Las Vegas to San Bernardino, wide open, as fast. I mean, I'd have to stop. We had markers where I was supposed to stop and meet, all right? And I have to wait sometimes like half an hour for them guys to catch up. They had a Chevy pickup truck. No way that it was going to stay with that H1, man. I was flying. And I ran it wide open all the way back, and that was going to be a really good test on it. Every time they stopped, they check it and kick it over, pull the spark plugs out and kick it, and listen, get a flashlight and look inside the spark plug hole, shake their heads, and I'd go again, and all the way to San Bernardino, and I put down on a report, and I wish I had that report on there. It was one, okay, what they did is they did it this way. They poured gas in it, okay, and they measured how much oil went in the tank, okay, and and it was the same oil that I had in the bottle, okay, and that was 100 to 1, because they didn't believe that the oil pump was doing the right job, that maybe it was malfunctioning and it was doing 20 to 1 instead of the 100 to 1, because at that position that maybe the oil pump company messed up, and the different openings, they had a chart of how much it was supposed to be, and it ran the same oil, and just connect the oil pump all together on it, and it survived at 100 to 1 on there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, now the bike by that time was well broken in,
I should say.
So there was no problem about that. It was too tight. I don't know if it would have done it for brand new or not, but
Did you, speaking of developing and running and testing, did you have anything to do with the A7s?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did. Let's see, when did the first A7 come out?
66.
It did that soon?
Yes, the first year, 66 was a 250 Samurai, was a downpipe.
Okay, yeah, but how about the A7 though?
67 is the first year for an A7.
Okay, all right. No, I didn't have from the beginning on the development. What I did was I did the development when they put the CDI on it.
Which was 60,
68.
yeah, right, late 68.
Yeah. And
Right.
so I did all the development on that and worked out all of the bugs on the shaft selector that grabs the
shift
shift drum
Mhm.
on it, and some oiling problems, and the rotary valves. Oh, we changed the rotary valves.
The timing?
Not
or
so
the
much the timing,
construction?
the construction to keep the things from disintegrating. They were
Yeah.
breaking the rotary valves.
They still broke them later on. That fiber always spun off the sleeve, broke loose of the fiber.
The way I don't know why they wouldn't do it to cure that was put like the road racing ones.
Like the A1R there to your left, Lewis?
Yeah, the steel disc.
Right. Which I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
And what a neat way to hop up a bike, man. Just get a doggone grinder or or whatever, a porting tool, and just grind the thing and give it more opening, and things are going to go faster.
Here we go. Which would
Oh, yeah,
be like that.
yeah.
And you could do a lot with the timing on hopping up an A7 as far as where the timing is on the
Yeah.
opening and the closing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did you ever ride or race an A1R when they came out? Other than an A7 that your first prototype H1R?
No, I never. Oh, yeah, I did, but I didn't race it. I tested it at Orange County, an A1R on it, and which was. Oh, okay, yeah, the A1. Then the A1RA, I did a lot of testing on that.
Okay.
Okay, at Orange County and Willow Springs, and which was the same time that we had the A7RA,
Mm.
which was, by that time it was 1970.
Mhm.
And I guess I might have had it in 69.
And in that bike there, you modified the frame to take an H1 production motor in an A7 frame.
Right, and that was the first H1R road racer.
It was a prototype.
It was a prototype, which was an A7R frame and a
Because
stock engine.
the H1R and an A7R frame are very similar still.
Yeah, oh, the motor just dropped right in.
Yeah.
And we made chambers for it. Will Smith Engineering in Santa Ana built us the chambers for the thing.
Now, that H1R, you also put a production motor in that and built a set of chambers for it too. Also, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you drag race or run at Bonneville with the stock motor?
Now, which one was this one?
The H1R number 1.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I ran it at Bonneville.
With the stock motor in it?
No.
Okay.
No. The only thing I did was I took the stock motor and I put the H1R barrels and heads on it, and the carburetors, and ran the stock lower end.
So you ran a wet clutch.
No,
Did you put the close ratio tranny back in it?
no. With that shaft, you can run the first gear. I think is part of the rate. I wanted a tall first gear, so I ran a tall first gear, and it gave me the dry clutch. But the rest of the gears were stock gears.
So you ran like a wide ratio transmission then?
Right, yeah, a wide
Okay.
ratio instead of a close ratio.
Right.
But I had a road racing first gear, so
Right.
I didn't have to shift until I was way out, which
Okay.
makes the optimum drag racing machine. If you got the horsepower to pull it, and
Right.
naturally it had the horsepower to pull it.
I see, okay.
That's why the cases probably are not H1R cases. Or do you have H1R cases?
Yeah, I do have H1R cases, but from what I'm learning is the H1R case starts life as a stock H1 case and is drilled and modified after it's casted.
Okay, all right. But
Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm getting as much information as I can, but that's what I'm being told.
okay, but what are the cases? Does they look alike, or what is does numbers
They're,
point?
yeah, they're identical. They are interchangeable, identical, everything. They even have the neutral switch on it. The H1R still has, the
Have you seen
neutral
other
indicator.
H1Rs
Yeah, I have.
with a neutral switch?
No, where the neutral switch boss is, behind the middle carburetor,
Mm-hmm.
it has a metal plate with a little gasket and a countersunk screw that blocks that off.
Okay, now that would be an H1R.
Right, but what I'm saying is that's a production case. If you're going to cast an H1R case, why would it have that in it? That would have been eliminated because obviously there's no neutral light.
Okay.
That's how it's rationalized to me.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I thought that the color, I know that the color on the fins of the barrels and the heads.
Oh, the barrels and heads aren't even remotely close.
Okay, but the cases I don't remember on it.
Yeah, the cases are totally, as well as the H2R, are interchangeable. You can,
Hmm.
the bolt pattern, everything is the same.
On what's the serial number on that? Is it this one here or?
With the H1R or the
Mhm.
H2R? The H1R is 90001.
Cases.
The cases are,
34, right?
well, these cases here are not the cases that came with the bike.
Oh, okay.
In fact, the cases that came on that bike are in the Netherlands right now. Garrett Jan Harlar has them.
And they're 0001.
Yeah, they're K8E 90001. But I don't know that one came in that bike because bike number 3 has motor number 9 in it. You know, I don't know, unless you can tell me what motor was in that bike, I don't know.
As I remember, now that you refresh my memory on there, I don't think that the engine number was 00001. The frame number was 0001, so that was, you know, that was no question. But the engine number was a higher number.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I have no way to document that.
For some reason, I'm thinking that 000009. No. I know it was a higher number, but I don't know if it's as high as number 9.
Right.
But it's a real low number.
Right.
But they didn't match.
Yeah, you know, and that makes sense to me because that motor number 34 came out of frame number 28, production bike 69 H1. So I have never, ever, and I don't know, Lewis, if you can confirm this or whatever, no, you've seen as many bikes as I have never seen a motor and a frame match.
I never have either. It gets closer as the lower the number
Right.
gets, but I've never seen it one match.
Yeah, never.
They're always different.
Okay, then I am right. Okay,
Yeah.
I remember that H1R had a higher number,
Yeah.
and I think I asked that question at Kawasaki one time while I was working there,
Uh-huh.
and they told me because they make a run of motors, and if it doesn't meet up to specs, they pull it off the assembly line, but they got to keep the assembly line going, and so they grab the next motor that meets up the specs and they match it with a bike.
That makes perfect sense.
So I guess even in road racing bikes, they have an assembly line. You know, I mean, that's got to be pretty limited production line, but I guess they still got to try to save money, and they make 10 frames and they make 20 bikes, and the 20th and the 20th don't go because they pull it off the line because it didn't run right.
Right.
They got to keep the line going, so they grab the next one and throw it in that frame.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're talking about getting the jetting right and the carburetor and the horsepower and all that, man, there's all kinds of problems that you could have on an assembly line, you know.
Did you, on that H1R, did you blow the motor up? Do you remember it all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No. I'm just thinking it was my dragster. The dragster with the H1R that I blew the motor because I was running nitro. No? I think with that
So
one,
whose motor was in the dragster? If it was an H1R motor, was it the motor out of that bike?
no, it was a stock top end. I mean, a road racing top end and a stock bottom end.
Okay,
That one did not have a dry clutch.
okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, wrong.
I mean, it's hard to make you go
No,
back that long.
no, because I ran it as a 750 and a 500. I'm thinking as a, you know what? The motor, oh my goodness. Where did I get? Oh, okay, no, it's no problem. It was a stock. That one did not have the one that was on the dragster was a stock bottom end with the stock transmission, okay, and an H1R top end. No, that ain't true either.
Let me see, I got some pictures here, might help you. Might help you, might not help you.
I'm wondering where I got the other H1R motor.
Well, help with being an employee at Kawasaki, I'm sure it wasn't a problem. You know.
Well, they're more than an employee. No, you could have been an employee, you could have got dog shit. No, you know what?
Mm.
I wonder if I didn't take the motor out of the H1R and put it in the dragster and then put the,
See, this is what I was asking you, because it has a wet clutch and your R cylinders, and you're obviously at Bonneville.
that's not a wet clutch.
Sure it is.
No, that,
Absolutely. That's a wet clutch.
how can you tell that?
Because it's got a silver cover and it's not, your clutch hub is not exposed.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm thinking the opposite. That is, no, wait, you know when these pictures were taken? In 72.
Okay.
That's a stock bottom end.
With R cylinders? Or standard? Because the chambers on the bike fit stock cylinders.
This frame is wider than a stock frame.
Right.
Okay, the reason it's wider than a stock frame, so it's rubber mounted. Or is it?
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. Absolutely. You're right. It is.
It's
That
rubber-
motor's rubber mounted. It has little biscuits.
And the stock one isn't rubber mounted.
That's
it's
correct.
Okay, so this is 1972.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is a stock bottom end with H1R top end and carburetors and chambers on it, and this bike would not start up
Really? Why was that?
unless you towed it at 90 miles an hour with a pickup truck,
Oh, really?
okay, because it had no ground, and it had the stock CDI ignition, because the stock CDI ignition was a better ignition than the road racing ignition was.
Well, the original road racing ignition on that was battery coil.
That's right. Okay, and this had a CDI, and so I wanted to run the CDI ignition. There's only one thing I forgot. I forgot to run the ground from the engine to the frame. And I didn't figure that out until I got back the next day to Fremont, I mean not to Fremont, but to Glendora, California. And so I didn't set a record with this bike that year, because this bike I was gonna break my 147 record, and I wasn't able to do it because it was breaking up. When I did get it started, it was breaking up real bad, and it ran only like 142 miles an hour, so I didn't even go after to claim the record. But I mean, it was breaking up bad, and you push this thing as fast as you want to in the pits, and you wasn't about to get it started.
Really?
You get a rope and you towed it at 90 miles an hour, and let go, and then it would start up on there, and it's because it had no damn ground. And I was going around everybody, calling up Kawasaki, Randy Hall, everybody, and they said, Tony, you don't know, we don't know. And so I went back and I put the ground on.
Uh-huh.
I sat on the seat of the bike, pedaled it with my foot, and run it down my driveway, and it wasn't slanted either, okay, or downhill, and it started up.
Really?
Can you imagine how frustrating that was?
Now this here is obviously Bonneville. Did you ever run it without the fairing?
Oh yeah, sure. I set the record in with it out, and I set like 2 or 3 records with it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now,
Here's another. This is obviously when you're not at Bonneville.
now this is Bonneville.
Oh, that is Bonneville?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think if this is 72 or not. No, I'll tell you one thing. You see where it says Kawasaki on the top?
Uh-huh.
That was just the decals they used to have back in them days. I put that on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That wasn't, didn't come from the factory like that. Man, was that doggone fairing good looking, huh?
Yeah, it was. Excellent.
Now I'm wondering if this is 19, that's a red bike, right? A red H1?
Yeah, that's red
Okay.
oil tank.
Okay, so this is another year than that year that I'm kneeling down over here.
Mhm.
This is another year. It ain't the same year.
So the black you're talking about that you put on is where?
The what?
The black, you said you put the black on?
No. This over here where it says Kawasaki.
Oh, on the fairing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Remember the decals that Kawasaki used to sell?
Right.
I wonder if we can see Bo Derek. Right there he is. That's Bo Derek's brother.
Brother or father?
No, that's a little boy here. Look at him.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right. So that's Paul Collins' son.
Yep.
Okay. I gotta get
And her name is Pat Collins. Bo Derek.
I just don't know which way to do it. I don't know what to do at Bonneville. I don't know what to do at
Oh.
drag. I don't know what to do at stock.
Cosmic can make this wheel.
I wouldn't spend 10 cents restoring it in that configuration, but
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like this, you know.
no, I know, but to restore it the way it came when you bought it, it's gonna be a lot.
Now, did you find out, or did Johnson know who had the front end to it?
Johnson located a front wheel for me in Canada because it's got the stock front end on it. The front end's fine.
Yeah, I'm not the front end, but I mean
Yeah,
the wheel. But the guy, he was asking if you got a hold of it or the guy would
Right.
negotiate or not.
Yeah, he's sending me a picture of it. He's a real gentleman, very nice
Oh, okay.
man. So really, the only hurdle I'd have to get after that would be the backing plate for the brakes in the rear of the swing arm.
This bike here ran 129 miles an hour.
That's 71.
Yeah, that's 71.
I'll lay him down here. So we can...
And
Which
this
one? Which one?
this one here, and this bike right here.
Wait, let me zoom in on it real quick here. I gotta focus because when you get this close up, it's tough. But let's see.
Hey, go that close? Damn.
Okay.
I want to get close-ups of my.
You do it like let me lay down here.
Okay. And the 350 ran 127. The red one there, right next to it.
That's amazing.
And the other bike next to it that's called an altered bike. Okay. That bike ran 137 miles an hour.
Now how much
For the
now?
record.
Now tell me about that blue 71. What did it do again?
129 miles an hour.
Jeez.
And how about the one next to it? What was that called?
A 350.
Okay.
That ran 127.
Hey Tony, on this picture here, the kid wearing the Kawasaki shirt, who's that?
And that is Pat Collins' brother, and Pat Collins grew up to be Bo Derek.
Okay.
And her
Which is-
father was a...
And the advertising manager for Kawasaki and PR manager, which was Paul Collins.
And then didn't you say that Ann Margaret used to be his secretary?
No.
Trophy girl.
Paul Collins' wife was the personal secretary to Ann Margaret. And that's how Paul Collins got Ann Margaret to start using Kawasaki's in the movies,
Oh, okay.
along with Joe Namath and...
But didn't you say that Ann Margaret was a trophy girl at one time? Or
yeah, she was a trophy girl for the 1970 Daytona, the trophy girl only for Kawasaki.
Ah, okay.
Because Rusty Bradley won the amateur race, and she presented the trophy to him, and there was a stand-in for her, and the crowd went bananas going after her stand-in on, and we ran away in the car to go to a clam bait. His name is Bob, and I don't know his last name because everybody called him Bob.
Oh, I'd kill for those bikes. I would kill for those bikes. Oh,
Now, them bikes should be around.
God, they're bad. Yeah, they're definitely A7Rs. The front fenders are definitely A7R.
Tony, can I get you to autograph some of these battery covers?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
This
Oh, what
list.
a gorgeous. Is that the color?
That's to the red 7500.
Nah, it wasn't that pretty.
Yeah, it was.
Is that right?
Well, that's the repaint. That's from that guy in L.A.
But it was that color?
Oh yeah, dead nuts.
Wow.
Definitely.
Man. And you got the nice emblem and all that?
Oh yeah, brand new.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When the hell did you find a brand new emblem?
You gotta watch the papers and stuff. You know, now they sell for about 75 to 100 bucks.
You just want me to sign my name or put
Yeah,
anything
just sign
in?
your name. That's
Okay.
fine. That'd be great. I brought a bunch of them. I'm gonna do all my 500.
Just right. What a piece of shit, Tony. Love you, Tony. This bike's a piece of shit.
This damn bike fooled the shit out of me. You know why? I thought that it was going to be like all of the rest of this stuff. Run it for a little while and explode and deteriorate, and it wasn't going to last.
Mm-hmm.
And as the years went by, I'm saying, gee, no Hondas come around anymore to buy any parts. They don't want no tune-ups. These H1s keep on coming, keep on coming, keep on coming, you know, year after year after year on it. And I'm saying, gee whiz, 10 years went by, and I'm saying, they outlasted the 750 Hondas. They're still running, and they're running great on it. For a bike that was supposed to be a flexi flyer, and
Here's your favorite color, Tony.
oh,
Okay, try doing this one right across here. And this is a gold pin. I'm hoping it'll work on that black.
right there.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I think you got to do it slow, kind of, but yeah, it's working.
Doggone. Neat.
Cool.
Hey, it did come out gold. It looked silver for a minute.
Do you want me to sign?
That is neat. You know what? Who was it? Oh, I think it was Paul Carrington. He says, Tony, he says, why did you sign the battery box cover? On, you know, inside on the H2, it's got a little bracket, and I wrote on there, tuned by Tony Nicosia, on the one that he's got. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was the one thing that he was more excited about. That's a neat bike. Wow,
No, that's a production.
man.
Is that painted?
No, that's the one that I touched up. So that's factory.
Okay.
But I botched up. It had chips here, and I didn't match it too good. In the
You know,
amateur
I never know.
Good enough. Are you about done now?
Me? Well, I got about 2 more, I think. I got my
Oh,
white.
Hey,
Is it running out? Oh,
it failed.
let's see here.
Get another pen.
Uh-oh.
Just wipe it off in a towel or something.
Yeah.
Oh, you got some noogies on it.
Here.
Don't
Dryer.
step on your...
I know.
You're gonna step on those and you're gonna be singing the blues.
No kidding.
Why'd I bring so many? Is that indelible or...
Yeah, but I'm gonna shoot layer clear over it.
Yeah, and then have it all bubble and run down. Signature go.
I'm gonna do it on the hottest day of the year.
Eddie Lawson signed my Lawson bike, and I'm not gonna clear it.
No, you didn't clear it?
No.
Then I won't clear it either. I thought you had clear shot over yours. Okay.
I mean, tell you what. Between the is it 3 or 4 of you? They're really good friends.
I got one more after this, Tony.
What's that? Motorcycle wise?
Yeah.
Really closely, I would say just really 3. Me,
What's
Lewis,
that?
and close friends, motorcycle wise.
Well,
Bruce and you and I.
I know you guys maybe don't need the money, okay, but you should open up a damn museum.
I love money.
You know.
Well, you think a museum would make money?
It'd have to be the right spot.
Yeah.
Don't they have one in L.A.?
But what?
Yeah, they do.
Motorcycle.
Chandler.
We gotta go down there sometime.
Chandler,
Okay,
I got a free
no,
ride.
Okay, more than that, I forgot to tell him, he probably knows it, they got one of the best museums of motorcycles in the world in Birmingham, Alabama. This guy's got all kind of CRs and
This
MV
guy has
Augusta.
the glass cases
Yeah,
stacked. We gotta see that guy.
Where's he at?
Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Negro.
You want me to try going over that, or you want me to?
I just go over it, yeah, it's fine. I think it'll work now.
I could take solvent and wipe it and just do it again. That's gonna look like you wrote it up there. Look, Tony really.
But I got it on tape.
Oh, that's true.
Except I don't know if it's the film. Let's see. I'm just filming his face. Yeah, there we go. Oh, see, now this is proof. He's signing my deal.
There we go.
There we go. Nobody can dispute it. Now, isn't this the bike that you owned at one time?
What's the number on it?
He probably did. He probably did at one time or another.
I doubt it.
I know.
The let's see.
I'm
Well,
selling it
my
for
71,
$50,000.
my 71 wound up here in the Bay Area.
What's that?
The red 71,
Red 71.
500.
You mean red 70?
Oh yeah, 70. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
I sold it right here.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Last one, Tony.
Oh, this is an H2.
H1.
H1.
71.
Oh. Oh, that's what I heard this thing.
I looked all over for my H.
How come they didn't have this?
That was someone put it on a can, painted it. So it's not. But I looked all over for my H2 side cover, but I just couldn't find it.
Well, I mean, I wonder why they didn't have this in more models. Did they keep the?
Manual?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they just put this on the 71s only?
What's that?
This little bracket for the.
72's got it too.
Okay.
You know, it's the one that does not have the emblem holes in it that has the latch.
Look at this.
It's the Coupe de Gras, the.
Oh, get him to sign that one.
Well,
Yeah.
no shit, Sherlock.
Shit.
Like
Would've
your
forgot.
stuff's. Like your stuff's important. That production
Hey,
crap.
this is recording this. And, you know, that's not very nice if you just say that to me, Dan.
Who cares about that production stuff when you have
That's
racing?
True.
Did I mention it was serial number 1, Lou?
Seriously? Didn't it? Wasn't that the one you had stamped last
Yeah,
week?
yeah, it's the one I sent down to Norman. He stamped it for
You want it done in gold or black?
black.
Black. Where do you want
To go with that one on only black.
Now, I don't. Is this the right pin? Because when it starts running all over or wearing off, I don't want you to get mad at me. Say, oh, you brought the wrong pin.
This stick's pretty good.
You know what?
You got another one?
That tank is.
No,
in,
that's the only black one I got. so.
that tank's in great shape.
Oh,
for
I
when you're-
can't believe that this tank even exists. You know, I mean, I'm not. All I'm going to do is clean it, and I'm going to put just put a light buff on it, and that's it. I'm going to leave the chips, scratches, nicks. I don't even care, because this you can't duplicate this. I mean, this is the way it came from the factory. I mean, there's just no way around it.
Man, okay, you get a hold of Sandy Cosman, because Sandy Cosman can get a hold of Elvin Govia.
And see about getting what?
Elvin Govia knows where some of this stuff is probably at.
Really?
Yeah, on it.
Doesn't say it right there. Just
If he doesn't have it, he knows who has it.
it's not working. Huh?
Yeah.
Ah, sons of a bitch. I don't even know where.
I got just alcohol or lacquer thinner, or not lacquer thinner, but I mean a lighter fluid.
I've got.
Got some wax cleaner.
That's what I did on
I've
it.
got one in. I got more than one.
I got it. Hang on.
No, I'm talking about. I got pins.
Oh. Ooh, I could use a goof
Here, it's better now. It's work better now. Try this.
Well, I'm gonna go outside and I'll get a couple of pictures that I got. Not the one that y'all have on, but another one on it, the one that I used to give everybody. And then I'll autograph the thing on it, what I'm autographing nowadays. On it, I got a good slogan
Oh, yeah? What is it?
on it. May the westward wind always blow to your backside and take you across the finish line to victory.
Better run it against you.
Piece of crap. Oh wait, there it goes.
Well, it would stick one now.
Can you put 90001?
Serial number, so I just put out an
Yeah.
SN? Nine, zero, zero,
One more zero,
zero,
one.
one.
And then give me the date was it 23rd?
What?
The date 4/23/96? Yeah.
Did they? Yeah.
It's 4/23/96.
Alright.
Ooh,
Good
I'm
enough.
happy. That's beautiful. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see this baby again. While I laid down many a time on this tank, this thing was really a comfortable bike to ride.
Really?
Yeah, I've raced a lot of bikes in my lifetime, and I rode some good handling bikes. The Osa would be one that was very forgiving, but as far as Kawasaki, it was fast bike. This thing was up to date. This bike handled absolutely perfect. Flat out, drag racing it, and road racing it.
Really?
There was nothing wrong, no complaints. You know, maybe if it had the horsepower of an H2 or something like that, it might have got squirrely, but the horsepower of a 500, boy, it was right there. No problems. And in these days, it was acceptable to have a bad handling bike. You know, if you was going to go fast, you knew that you were going to take the chance and that you might crash because the bike handled bad. You know, you just accepted it. And to ride this thing, it was like you didn't worry about that. And that took a big burden off of you. You know, everything else was... I had a H2 that was capable of running in excess of 175 miles an hour. I had to leave Bonneville in the middle of the week because the race lasted until Saturday, but at like about Wednesday, the bike handled so bad that I told Kawasaki, I'm going to get myself hurt. Everybody's going to know how bad these Kawasaki's handle. I said, I better leave here. And they told me, go ahead and leave, Tony. And as bad as it was shaking at the top end, I kept on rolling off the throttle to stop it from shaking. And I didn't even realize it, but when I got back home on it, I received a certificate in the mail from AMA that I had set a record at 142. And, you know, I mean, that was unacceptable. I didn't even realize that I had broken the record, you know. The record that I ran against probably was like about 139 or 137, and I broke it and I ran 142. I was looking at something in excess of 170 miles an hour, and the bike would do it, but before it'd get through the traps, because you got to go the whole mile, it just starts shaking, you know. And I kept on trying all kind of different things to help it out to stop doing that, and I couldn't do it. And I tried so damn hard. I said, man, I'm over trying, you know, I'm going to get myself hurt, and then Kawasaki's going to get a bad rep of having to, because it looked like a stock bike on it, and it just had a race engine in it and with chambers on it, and it was fast on it. And so we never found out how fast that bike would go on the top end. You know, I was thinking that it might have run 175. It might have gone past 180 on it, because that thing was powerful. And in fact, I know later on it would have been, that was just with the engines that we just started building at the time. That was like about 133 horsepower motor.
Wow. You know what? Since we're signing stuff, might as well do the H2 tank that I'm going to put on the. Well, here, let's take that off your lap.
I love babysitting this baby.
You know, Lou, I want to get, if you could, the serial number on the.
I didn't know that you wound up with so little parts. You just wound up with the basic hardware stuff.
I got a long way to go.
I tell you what, that guy.
Oh yeah, I can get him there. Okay.
You see?
Let's see. Okay.
Can you make out the 9?
Yeah, I'm zooming in right now. Okay.
Tell you where the light's best.
What an animal this guy was.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, move the light. Wait, 1 second.
You know what?
Okay, move the light. Oh, that's perfect.
I think this tank came from the racing department at Kawasaki.
The A1R?
Yeah.
Well, it should.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
that's pretty.
But
Although we're reading it upside down, you can't flip it around. Though.
Yeah, no, I can. Let me just disconnect it from the electric power cord.
Okay.
No, do it.
no. This is a bike that crashed at Willow Springs.
He said, of course, the guy could be lying. He said it crashed at Daytona at 68. That could be bullshit, though. Well, I don't know how old it is, but it's not an early bike like the H1R.
You know what really, really nice?
Mm.
This might be one of the bikes that are, if you could get a hold of this guy named Bill Bastian, okay?
I've heard that name before.
Okay, he was the mechanic at Suzuki and also at Kawasaki. And then he went on to build aluminum frames for motocross bikes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if he stayed in that, he's a millionaire, but maybe he didn't, okay? And he had a shop in Gardena.
Got it.
Yeah.
So.
That.
And you know who would know where Bill Bastian's at? Is Walt Fulton. And Walt Fulton's got that fairing company.
Walt Fulton's got a fairing company.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know,
I'll take this.
remember them big old fairings that they had for bikes? What the hell?
Like
Was
better
it like
food.
a-
Yeah, like a better fairing, but with ugly looking thing.
Couldn't have been uglier than a better.
Oh no, this is uglier than a better. And one time they had a fairing that they covered like the whole front of the bike.
Oh,
the front
really?
wheel.
Oh, that sounds icky.
You know who would know? Norm. He would know.
Oh, that. Yeah, all my scratches came out.
I think it's a crime that you own that tank.
You know, I fell into this tank.
I know you did.
You want one? Yeah. You got
Look at
one?
that. That tank is beautiful too.
Oh,
Look at that.
it almost looks fake.
I think it is. I think it's a reproduction.
It could be.
No.
You know, there's silk screening now.
Yeah.
What is it, a stock tank that was off the shelf somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
You just don't find those anymore.
Man, I thought that somebody redid that.
No. They redo them now. They redo them pretty damn good.
But
Not that
they
good.
didn't have a paint job that good on them.
Yeah, they
Sure
did.
they do.
You just didn't notice, Tony. You were throwing them away right and
You're too
left.
busy laying your body on top of it.
Yeah. You were too busy ever getting a new one every time. You
Yeah,
did.
right.
Say, okay, now you fly me down about 50 more tanks. I put a ding in the other one.
Please.
Well, you know what I used to do though? I used to go through all the barrels in the warehouse and pick the barrels with the right port timing, because they vary all over the place. And I'd get the ones that were the right specs, because a lot of the barrels didn't meet the right specs as according to the factory specs on there. And I'd make sure I'd go through like 100 different barrels to come up with one good one from each cylinder.
You know what I want to write on this is, see, that one's self-explanatory, what that thing is. This may be something like world record holder or my world record holder, serial number 1220. I don't know. Well, what do you think? Don't want to get too out of hand.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you could make a little sticker on that, just have them sign it, and then put a nice typed one where you could put all the information, world record.
Screw that. It's here. You can just write it.
Okay.
I'll never do that. That'll never.
Just write it down on paper and I'll copy it.
Okay.
You gotta look in the book then. Figure it out.
Oh, I think I'll go over and see if I can find a pen.
What was that?
Oh,
I got the camera going.
good.
I got it in stereo.
Enjoy. That's not pretty.
How about the bike I set the first 11 seconds production record with.
Ooh, I like that.
Sounds good.
Or the first, or the H2 that set the first 11-second production. Okay, what I'm trying to say, it was the first motorcycle, production motorcycle, to run in the 11s.
The first 11-second production motorcycle.
Yeah,
World's first 11-second production motorcycle.
yeah.
Ooh.
Or no, put down the serial number.
Yeah.
Okay, H2 serial number such and such. The first production motorcycle to run in the 11-second bracket.
Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was trying to make sure that was, if that was the fact or not, but that's by far the fact. If none of the other bikes could run in the 12s on it, and a couple of years later this thing ran in the 11s on it, yeah, there would be nothing. There was absolutely nothing that was just annihilated.
You know, what's his
These
name?
bikes would
On
run.
gas?
I'd run at Oregon, at Fremont, right? And I'd be shifting in to fourth gear, okay? And in fourth gear, you're about 3/4 tracks, and this thing would do a giant wheelie if I wanted it to.
Boy, this thing ran 1195 at 113.
No, 1195 at 115.
Okay, but didn't Dennis Dean run 115.38? You ran 1195. You got the ET, but he got the miles per hour.
Yeah, but it doesn't say what I ran.
Yeah, 1195.
No, yeah, but the mile an hour.
No, they didn't give your mile an hour. They just gave his.
Yeah, but mine is also 1115.
Oh, okay.
It's just 1115 less.
Okay.
When you get a good shot, and we'll just stand right here.
You want to go over more towards the light.
Okay.
Look at this. This is
I want
like
to get the bikes in the back too, but that's
still. You want to get the Harley?
No, I want to get the Callaway, man, the real bikes.
Okay, let's see.
Just hit the still when you got a good one.
Well, you're so damn ugly. I don't know when it's going to be time to. There you go. You got it.
Okay, it's frozen.
Yeah, let me try another one.
Okay.
But how do I get past out of the frozen?
Oh, you gotta hit the off
Okay.
right
All
behind
right,
there.
got it. And let's see, Tony, a smile, babe.
Smiling big.
Or
That's a good one. Take a
Okay.
look. If it's not good, I'll take another one.
So, okay, you're in
Oh, that's good.
You're in law enforcement,
Yeah.
okay?
Now you gotta look
He's
through
a
that.
criminal.
All right, yeah.
He believe me, he's
But,
got
okay,
the mind
now,
of a criminal.
let me tell you
Or you get me.
what my brother-in-law is.
They'll have Tony get you and
is-
me shaking hands.
Okay.
Just kidding. Hey, Tony, my buddy.
Okay.
You're sleeping in my camper tonight. All right. Gotta be in LA in 4 hours.
Okay, check that out.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Good enough.
Anyway, my brother. All right.
Well, now I look like a
My
smart ass
brother-in-law
though.
is the lawyer for
Well,
the
you
state,
are though.
the state attorney general.
Oh yeah?
Okay, and he became a lawyer after being a sheriff for 18 years, and then he had a detective agency, and he used to be the bodyguards to like all the princes and kings, like from the Middle East, on Kuwait and stuff like that. And they come into Miami, and he'd meet them in Miami, and then he escort them around the United States on it. And they had their own bodyguards too, but they like an American because they, you know, the culture and everything. And when like this one of the wives, she walked down like what is it? They have Neiman Marcus in New York.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I know they got it in
Absolutely.
San Francisco, but I didn't know if they
Yeah.
had it in New York.
Oh,
But anyway,
yeah.
department stores like Neiman Marcus,